Welcome to A ComfortZone Retrospective on Kismet Radio in partnership with These Days. We're your hosts, Tara and Pedro, and we're broadcasting from south-facing windows. This July, Saba celebrated the 14th anniversary of his cult classic Comfort Zone, an ambitious 14-track project that ultimately defined his musical journey. To celebrate the occasion, These Days and Kismet published an oral history of the tape, which saw Pedro speak to 17 contributors and friends who were around during the creation of Comfort Zone. We thought it would be cool for our collab to also include an audio piece, so here we are with A ComfortZone Retrospective, a limited series where we unpack all 14 tracks on the tape, welcome some special guests, and generally nerd out on music. How are you doing today, Pedro?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good, you know.
I knew you were going to make a comment about the weather. How did I know that?
This is the first time that we're recording this episode. But doing good overall.
Yeah, that's good.
How are you? Are you
I'm good.
excited to dive
living
in?
the dream.
Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so first up is the song Welcome Home.
Yo, I walked in Def Jam on my 19th birthday, I can't recall my 18th. Came a long way since the days where we strolled like we homeless and loitered on State Street. I just pray that you get home safely. Ironically, the Green Line train, cause I was softer than cotton, starting college, something that here you can't be. Can't see them niggas getting on no time soon. We worry about survival out here. Like where the hell I'm gonna get my food? Nigga, fuck your song, I don't care. Yo, where I'm gonna get my support at? Where you go when you on your last? The fam you actually had before rap. Welcome home a doormat, they all.
Do you want to start with themes, Pedro?
Yeah. What's really interesting about this record, I think it's that it's a departure from the previous three songs that kick off Comfort Zone. Mm-hmm. This is a little bit more solemn, a little bit more somber, and more introspective than the previous three that are a little more on the bright and upbeat side. Obviously, he still delves into like serious topics, but here you really get into this darker side of Saba's mind, and not as like optimistic, I would say. There's a lot of, I would say the big theme is like the trials and tribulations of a young up and coming artist and trying to show his family that their support is being validated, but there's no tangible proof yet. I think like that's kind of what I taken off, and like he's having self-doubts about his career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the emotions on it are a bit more nuanced than other records because it's kind of hard to, I mean, I feel like unless you really listen to it like this, like it is self-doubt, right? But it just feels not as obvious that like what the things he's grappling with.
I think also the lyrics are a little bit more vague, a little bit more.
I think that's why.
Yeah.
Because he could be talking about anything, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's the sonics and the way that he delivers things that it just makes you feel like almost entrapped, again, like in his mind or something. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And so tell me more about the lyrics. You were saying that a little shorter, more abstract.
Yeah. Both verses are really short, but I think they have a lot of punch when he delivers, and even some songs that, in case it was cut up, there was a big horn. But you know, even the lyrics that are kind of leave you wondering what's the full story behind them. There's a part where he's saying, "I went to Def Jam on my 19th birthday. I can't remember my 18th," and then he kind of shifts the story to a different thing. You're like, damn, what happened?
Yeah.
You know? So,
I guess his 18th birthday wasn't very memorable.
Yeah, and that whole second verse, like he also paints a very vivid picture of, you know, simpler times, I guess, but also times where he might have been struggling a little bit more, like loitering on State Street with his friends. I think that's a very Chicago experience, especially for kids that are trying to figure out what to do and there's not a lot of spaces for them. It happens even today, you know, there's a lot of controversy about kids being in downtown, but there's not real spaces for them to hang out and stuff. So that's kind of like their avenue to do so.
Yeah. And again, the theme of like car and transportation crops up again. I mean, in the oral history, he talks about playing GTA 5, you know?
So. And that's how he finds the sample for this record.
Yeah.
He's playing Grand Theft Auto, and a band called The Hicks is being played in that video game. So he goes and tries to find their discography. He finds the song that's not part of the video game. I guess he was just going through the duo's albums, and he really resonated with him. This is one of few songs where it's like fully produced by Saba. And so he took that sample, slowed it down, added some 808 drums and a little bit of like that Saba, like I guess like touch, to really make it his own. And I don't know if we've really heard a song like this in any of his records before or since. So it's a really special one for me.
Why do you think it stands out in that way?
It's just like the sample, it's by this electronic duo. Obviously they play with a little bit of neo soul and hip hop, which is easier for Saba to bring it. But it puts him in a space that I don't know if we've kind of seen him be in before.
Yeah.
And I'm also just used to like Saba being more, I guess, explicit and more line through-ish in his records, where like you can see point A and point B in the story. Where here again he tells like a line where like it really hits you, and then he takes you to another line that really hits you, but you don't know where they're connecting, right? Or what the actual, I guess, story that he's telling you in a direct way.
Yeah. I think this song and 401k, which we'll get to, really make me think about the sequencing of the album, because it kind of starts like, I feel like with Time Zone it's kind of like neutral and then it goes up, and now we're like we're in a valley, right? So it's just interesting to see like the flow of his emotions and you know, especially like you said with this, like he's really vague and we're used to him being explicit about what he feels. And so, you know, just feels like really adds to that like narrative stream of consciousness feel of the album.
And it sounded like they had been working a lot on like what the track list should be.
Yeah.
And to your point, this is like that section of the album where it's a little bit more moody. We're gonna go into 401k in a little bit angrier, right? A little frustration. So it's really showing that he's already thinking these big picture ideas even at a young age. And also it's a constant theme for Saba, but like being able to be vulnerable in different ways. This is a different way where like he doesn't have to like really tell you everything on the record, but you still feel it. And one cool thing about that also is that I feel like I could listen to it and take something away from it that another person could listen to and feel connected to it in a different way.
Yeah.
Like to me, this always kind of reminds me of, I'm originally from Mexico, so being away from home and then coming back and like having like your support there, but like knowing that it's like you can't see them all the time.
Yeah.
It's very nostalgic in that way for me.
Yeah. And you know, again, like with the song title, like Welcome Home, you know, he has a nod to Fresh Waters in the first verse, which is a callback to Time Zone. And like, you know, Fresh like pops up again and again. He has like a presence on the album without like yet being on the album, you know? So he says, take my heart, take the loss of your brother to the court system, order it in, order y'all to yada yada, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, again, showing that frustration, right, about like the system and like just the world that he's around while still trying to make it happen as an artist.
Yeah. I think the refrain is my favorite part from this song. And that was my best line when we did that in the first episode. But my heart can't be Teflon, I feel everything and some. Which just to me hits on a deeper level because, you know, I would love to not have emotions personally, you know? So the fact that, I don't know. I also know like Saba's a water sign, so I understand, bro. Like, but that refrain itself is actually, I mean, it's just crazy to me. Like says, pain make the best songs. Like it reminds me of that concept of, you know, great art requires suffering, which, you know, I don't know how you feel about that.
I was gonna say, I'm curious to know how you feel, and it's also something that I was going back to the oral history. I wish I would have like pushed back on Saba and asked him more about, like, because I think he did believe this when he recorded it. I wonder, and at least I'm of the mind that that's not necessarily true, but yet there is a lot of great art that comes from, you know,
I mean, to be a human is to experience trauma and pain, right? So I think like when you make art, that is, I just don't think that there's a person in this world who hasn't experienced pain or trauma. And like your art is a vessel for, I think, to, you know, obviously express yourself, but to like kind of like talk about the things you've been through and like your experiences, right? So I just think like, it's like separating the art from the artist. Like I think like some of those things just go hand in hand. Like like if I truly was a robot that didn't feel, I probably wouldn't make good art.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I guess for me, it's like, does it always make the best songs? Like,
No, but
I'm
like,
sure they make some really great ones, but I think Joy can also bring you a lot of like great songs.
Yeah, but I also think it's like later, like when you find joy, you know, that's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like a brooding writer, but it's like when you find joy, like you're always still gonna pull from your past and like the things that you've endured or, you know, overcome.
Yeah, and part of why I'm curious, wish that I would have asked Saba is because I think he's kind of been known for those type of records, and also with Care For Me, I think he was kind of pigeonholed also to like make these like sad records.
Sort of grief records.
Yeah,
right?
grief records, and I wonder if he feels like that's productive or actually valid of the type of work that he makes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really see him that way, but I could see how you could. I mean, I think he's made grief records, but I don't think he only makes that or that's like his lane, you know?
Agreed.
Because he does make hard shit, I mean, you know?
I mean, and speaking to like that kind of mindset, like the next record that we're going to talk about is 401k that, you know, is in that area.
Yeah. Next up is 401k.
I ain't got no job, young nigga, I ain't got no job. I trade a 401k for an AK, cause when my vitals stop, grind don't stop, the grind won't stop when my vitals stop. Mind don't plot, so I don't talk, trade a lifelong girl for a dot, yeah. Marathon, that's 4K. Some niggas sell they self for just 4K. I trade a 401k for an AK.
Do you want to start with themes?
Yeah, so 401k, I think the big theme there is being like a young black kid from Chicago or the US in general, right? And seeing how your opportunities might seem a little bit more narrowed because of the system and just like how the world is functioning at the moment. And there's a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. He speaks about these terms like 401k and financial and going to school and how those realities are not really that feasible for the segment that he's speaking to in this song. It's also, while Welcome Home is a little bit more inside his mind, I think this is like channeling people around him and himself and being very evocative about the frustration that they have.
Yeah, I mean, this song is really hard. Honestly, trade up 401k for AK is actually a crazy fucking line. Like, if you really think about it.
There's a lot of really heavy lines in this record. You're like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I know he's a kid is because he's talking about having a GPA. But like, if anybody else has said 401k for AK, like, you know, I think that's at any age, you know, a thing, you know, like you understand what they're talking about. It's it's more evergreen thought.
Yeah, and it's like, again, he's talking about something that's so real compared to like these terms of like 401k where even if you have financial literacy, they're still like, you know, you understand that they're not tangible concepts. They like maybe long term they'll help you, but not in this near term. And he's speaking to that like urgency and immediacy that the communities that he lives in need.
Yeah. And this song was produced by Flex Lennon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who used to go by Born Ready Productions back then. It's actually a really cool story because they had their first collaboration came a few months before 401k, and it's called Girlfriend. And Flex told us like it's even in the same BPM range and stuff. They just kind of figured out that they had a really good connection and a really good sound through there that had been successful. When I first heard Girlfriend, I thought that Saba was the most genius lyricist.
I haven't heard that song actually.
He starts it by saying, my girlfriend I can't even say it, but like he says, my girlfriend's celibate, and plays on the words to say of drugs. So like he refers as my girlfriend is celibate and then changes that word and that meaning to be like celibate's a drug.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was just like, wow, my mind is blown, you know?
This is when you were a kid or
I mean, we were like 18, 19,
okay.
You know? You're funny. It's still a good line to this day. It's it wouldn't blow my mind. And that song, like, I don't know, Flex make stuff that hits really hard in the car. And Girlfriend did that. They were like, when they reconnected, they tried to do that again with 401k. And the formula works because they put this out as a single, and it was the first record that Saba had that ever hit 10,000 plays. And this is at a time when you really have to earn 10,000 plays. I feel like people still might struggle nowadays with that, but like with streaming and playlisting, that's kind of like, those numbers are inflated. Like 10,000 plays back then
on SoundCloud
meant that you really had a fan base and like people were really paying attention.
Those were the good days.
Yeah. And Saba even calls it like probably the most important record in the album because that's when people started really connecting with him and like taking him seriously. And Flex Lennon on his side said that like that was a record that really made him feel like he was making inroads in his career as a producer. So it's a marquee record, and it's also like a before and after moment for both artists involved in this song.
That's cool, yeah. Did Saba say why he thought people really liked this record?
I think he didn't explicitly say it, but I do think that it's the fact that he's really speaking during a time also where the world felt very chaotic. I guess maybe not as chaotic as it feels now.
Yeah.
But people were really just connecting to, like you said, like the lines are really hard and they hit really hard. And also people were feeling that in a very personal level.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting from Welcome Home to 401k, the transition, because like we said, like the first three songs are very upbeat in comparison. And then like Welcome Home, you get this kind of like vague feeling from him of like you said, not explicit, but I feel like 401k is very sharp, you know, like they're both not upbeat songs, but they're just so different in like the emotion that he sort of presents, you know?
Yeah, he's that's a really good point. He's like really focused, like it's just kind of coming out of him, but in a way that's so sharp.
Yeah.
And it also, I think it speaks so well to the fact that so many people that are not part of these communities have the advantage of like long-term plans like a 401k, or thinking of like, okay, investment into school and then it'll pay off when I get a good job years down the line.
Yeah.
Saba's like kind of like showing the other side of like where he's coming from, and what he's seeing is like there's this need to like get money like immediately. Like there's something about like they'll take 4K right away instead of the 401k.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's kind of such a important part of what the story that he's trying to make that makes this song so real.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in survival mode, you know, and he's like so hungry to make it and to get out of a situation. And that hunger is really palpable here. Yeah,
and it's also interesting to me that Welcome Home, I think I mentioned this already, but Welcome Home is more personal, very like inside of his mind. This one, it's him, but also seeing the people around him and the people that he's has a relationship on a day-to-day basis and how they're suffering, right? And that, like, it's a collective anger and frustration that comes out of it. That he speaks to, like, you know, I'm in school, but like my GPA doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
But then he goes and tells example of other people that are like, oh, they would do some crazy shit for very low, you know?
Yeah, I think Welcome Home is like very internalized. And the doubt is there. And then we get to 401k and he has to push that doubt aside because he has so much riding on. You know, there's so much at stake.
So much at stake.
Yeah.
And then there's like also like there's no real way like or visible way out for the people. This song,
there's no blueprint.
I don't want to bring this up again because it's cost you a lot of flack, but you know, you did say this was your sleeper record.
I did?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you said it was best song in the whip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see that for sure.
And I stand by it because the drums are so hard and that energy that Saba shows. I remember that song being played at a couple live shows and it would just blow the roof up. Like people were moshing, were jumping around. It was a really visceral experience.
Yeah. And I think like this record, I mean, obviously it's a coming of age project, but there's just something about like he's talking about things that we're concerned with at 18, our GPA, school, whatever. and like all these really real world elements like seep in that a teenager shouldn't have to worry about,
Yeah.
but is, you know?
Yeah, and there's like the original cover art also kind of tells that story. It's on Genius, but it's basically a painting of like a kid, a small child with an AR on his back. And it's telling, I think that's...
Is that the single artwork?
Yeah, the single
Okay.
artwork. And I think that tells kind of like that story too. It's like a lot of stuff that he's speaking on here, it's like other kids don't have to worry about, you know? And 401k, it's another way of him expressing like his coming of age story that, similar to Welcome Home, it's more on like a darker side or more, a side that we don't really see from Saba often, I guess, until later on in Care For Me and stuff. But speaking of that sequencing and how smart he was and his team were in trying to figure out how the track list plays out, the next song is kind of like that bounce back of energy to For Y'all, and a little bit more grateful and a little bit more taken into the people that he cares about. So it's a record that I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in to A Comfort Zone Retrospective with Kismet Radio and These Days. On the next episode, we'll dig into the next two songs, For Y'all and Scum.